Oh, okay. All of a sudden, my eye was just catching all these things and I was losing my train of thought. You're entering a world where there is no book, there is no tour guide. I mean, there are lots of books, how to complete your dissertation in a year, how to write 1 hour a day. There are all kinds of books about how to complete your PhD. But a lot of the guidance that is offered isn't, it isn't approached with the same kind of research eye that our research that we conduct is. And our goal tonight is to try to provide information to you to guide you on this journey of moving into candidacy or completing your candidacy and graduating, using best practices and correcting incorrect information or filling gaps that may have gone unaddressed in the past. So we're calling it what you need to know now so that you can submit after a successful defense without an unexpected delay. Next slide. And this is a collaboration between the Writing Center and the graduate school. And tonight we have 4 goals. The first is to help you get your eyes on key people from the graduate school and the Writing Center. So to introduce you to some people, some of them you may know, some of them you may not, and to also understand their roles and the roles of these offices and key roles that these offices may play at different stages in your program. To overview the process of applying to graduate, allowing you to a better understanding of deadlines and where to find things, applying to defend, and how the submission process works, including those important meetings that you have at the graduate school via Zoom. The third one is to share resources, library resources, and Writing Center resources that are available to take you through the process from the minute you enter your program until the time that you finish either your master's thesis or your dissertation. And finally, because we've seen so many missteps that have caused a great deal of anxiety for candidates at the last moment, or derailed some people for a short period or sometimes for more, to address some of the frequently occurring concerns or missteps that frustrate people at a time that should be one where you feel a great deal of elation for a job well done. Next slide. So first we're going to look at the key people, and I'm going to turn this over to our representative from the graduate school, Dr. Stephen Meyer, who is the Assistant Director of Enrollment and Information Analysis.
Hi, everyone. So yes, I work in the graduate school, and I work for the Dean, Dr. Brandy Randell, who is not able to join us today. She's actually at a conference in New Orleans. And also in our office supporting this is Katrina Lewis, who is having, for some reason, a difficult time. She's texting me. She's having a difficult time getting in. She said that the passcode's not working. So I don't know if Victoria or Sheri or if any of you see her trying to get in or not. But either way. So just to give a little bit of a background on what we do here in the graduate school. And a lot of times students don't realize this until they get to the very, very, very end. And it comes even as a little bit of a surprise. After you defend, the last thing that you will do is meet with myself or Katrina in the graduate school and have your dissertation reviewed to ensure that it is within the OU guidelines and standards for dissertations and theses. And so a lot of times students will defend and say, I'm done. And then they get to us and then we're like, did you do this? And did you do this? And is it formatted this way or is it formatted that way? And so what we're hoping to do today as part of this presentation is to give you a preview, a little bit about what that process looks like. And more importantly, give you some tips so that when you're writing and you're creating your document, that you're creating it to the format. Because yeah, we get a lot of times, we get a lot of students who will show up and they've defended, they think they're done, but unfortunately the document is nowhere near the formatting standard, and quite honestly have a tremendous amount of work in front of them that they didn't realize that they would have. So we're hoping that with 28 students on here today, or 28 people on here today, we're giving as many of you a leg up, and so that you don't have to experience that pain point like maybe some others before you have. And I'll also add, like Sheri or Dr. Perdue has said, I too have written a dissertation. It's part of the reason why I own this process here a little bit in the graduate school. So I know what it's like to go through this process. I know what it's like to get through defense and have this in front of you. And so I will tell you, when we go about this process, we try and do it from a supportive and helpful way, and not from a punitive and whatever, because we know you're at the end, we know you've been working on this, we know you're stressed out, and so the goal is to support you the best that we can. So I'm pretty excited that we're having this today.
Thank you. I got started and I wanted to wait till the proper time to introduce myself. My name is Sheri Wynn Perdue, and I'm the director of the University Writing Center. And I'm excited to let you hear from my staff. But I just wanted to briefly share, like Steve, I've gone through the process, and that's a great reason for the services that now exist. As I looked around when I came to Oakland and when I took over the Writing Center, I realized that while there were student services, there weren't student services for grad students. And going through the process not once, but twice for a PhD, I realized that it's so vastly different from the work that undergraduates do, and you need a different kind of support. And so slowly over time, since I first came into my work here in 2006, I have built a team and built a series of services that you're going to hear about today that we're really proud of. But before we get into those services, I'd like you to hear from some people that I really hope you're going to come to see. So first, I'd like to introduce Victoria.
Hi, everyone. Nice to see some familiar faces and names today. I can see a couple people I work with here today. I am the graduate assistant and a graduate consultant at the Writing Center. I work primarily with students like yourselves, graduate students on dissertations, theses, and I personally understand where you're going through. I'm in the dissertation process right now and hope to graduate next year. I obtained my master's and did my thesis at another university, so I completely empathize with where you're coming from and the stress. Please come see us. Please come see me if you're struggling with anything in particular. I really enjoy helping students with their research methods, with your statistical analyses. Before we get into any of that, I really would like to help you guys in the beginning stages of your work, and let's build a relationship together to get you guys going and graduated. Red?
Hi, everybody. I second that wholeheartedly. Thank you, Tori. My name is Red, and I am also a graduate consultant at the Writing Center. I am myself a doctoral student here at Oakland. I did my master's and my thesis and went through that process at Oakland. So Tori and I have complementary experiences with that from either being at Oakland or a different school. Oh boy, what else can I tell you? Well, I really love presentations. You can see I have a lovely title as the Defense Presentation Advisor. That is a wide scope job with many responsibilities, but in short, all that means to you all is come see me with your presentations. I'm happy to help you with them. Another thing that I could offer is Tori and I both have some experience with IRB, which is oftentimes a very critical component of research and your final project. For those of you who work with human subjects, that could be challenging or something new for you. So that's something we can help you with as well, that IRB paperwork. And really anything in between from start to finish. We can work with mind mapping, brainstorming, outlining, all the way through, like I said, till the defense presentation, and they're calling you doctor at the end. So come see us, and we're really looking forward to working with you all.
And we have 2 new consultants who are starting their training, graduate consultants. Kaylee is here with us. She can give you a wave there. I'm not going to put her on the spot. And Victoriano, who is going to be joining us as well. So we have a team of people whose sole purpose is to consult with you. And when we get to resources that we share with you for consultations, you have your own scheduler. We reserve a space in our scheduler specifically for graduate students for theses and dissertation appointments. That's how much we know that your needs are distinct from other people. So we have specialized training for them, and we reserve you your own appointments. So we'll move on to the process, which brings us back to Dr. Meyer or Steve.
Yeah, and so just to let everybody know, I actually prefer Steve. So feel free to call me Steve. I'm on a school board locally, and I beg and I plead them not to call me Dr. Meyer, but yet they still do it. So I'm going to beg all of you, like I do them, just please call me Steve. So first things first, when you are preparing to defend, one of the things that you really need to know and not get caught by is that there are very important dates that you must follow the semester that you plan on graduating. Okay, so if no one's talked about you, or no one talked to you about this yet, consider this your first time hearing it, and hopefully I'll say it in such a way that it's memorable, so that if you're not planning on defending in the winter, or if you're even planning on defending next fall, that you'll still remember it. So please remember, dates are important. The first date that is critically important is the date to apply for graduation. Okay, so if you are planning to apply for, or if you are planning to graduate in winter, you need to apply to graduate. And we have that information on the grad school website and on the registrar's website. But it is important that if you're planning to graduate in winter, that you apply to graduate by the last day in January, or if you're going to apply in summer 22, that you apply to graduate by the last day in May. So those are going to be the 2 critical dates. And then the last day to apply for graduation in fall, I believe, is the last day of September. Pretty sure that's correct, right? So you have to apply to graduate. Then the other thing that is very important, especially if you are a PhD student, it's less important for our thesis students, simply because there a little bit of flexibility on this, but not a whole lot. But especially for our PhD students, you need to defend by the defense deadline. So if you are planning to graduate in winter, you need to apply to graduate by the end of January, and you need to defend by March 15th. Okay. Now, here's an important thing to know about your defense deadline. At Oakland, all PhD defenses must be posted publicly for a minimum of 7 days. Okay, so that means that your advisor has to go on our website and fill out the public defense announcement form. And it must be done 7 days, or actually you should more like 10 days prior to the defense, because we need to put it on our website. All right. So if you're going to defend on March 15th, you can't tell us on March 14th. You have to tell us at least 10 days before. So as you're seeing, as I'm talking about this, and we're talking about all these dates, planning to graduate actually takes a lot of planning. Okay. Remember that. Planning to graduate takes a lot of planning. You need to apply to graduate. You need to defend by the deadline. And then once you defend, there are 3 other important dates that you need to remember. And that revolves around the submission of your thesis or dissertation. So when you defend, the week after the defense deadline, we have what's called the approval deadline. Okay. And it's actually more like a week and a half or 2 weeks. But the dissertation approval deadline, that is the day where your dissertation or theses must have been approved for formatting by the graduate school. Okay. So you're going to defend, and then hopefully you're meeting with us before you defend, but then you have 2 weeks for your document to get format approval. And then a week after that, there's another deadline. And that deadline is the submission deadline. And that's the final day to actually submit your document to the grad school, to the print shop and Proquest and all those other things, which, you know, you don't need to really worry about right now. So when you're planning to graduate, there are 5 very important days: the graduation application, the defense deadline, the format approval deadline, as well as the dissertation thesis submission deadline. I'm going to stop for a second because I just threw a lot at you. And so I'm going to ask Red or Victoria if there's a great way. This is the first time we've done this, and it's the first time we've done it on Zoom. So I want to see if there's, before I keep going, if there's any questions so far.
I will add that I am looking at the chat. So if you guys do have any questions and you're unable to unmute yourself with your mic, feel free to drop the questions in the chat room and I will address those and get them to the appropriate people to get you an answer.
Great. So seeing as there are no other questions, hold on, I'm looking at the next slide. So if we can go to the next slide. So when you are preparing your document and we are reviewing it, I think what's important to know is that we are, as this bullet point at the top says, the grad school is reviewing it for format. We are looking at it for structure. We're looking at it for organization. And that is, are the margins the way that they should be? Are the tables and figures the way that they should be? Are the preliminary pages, like the table of contents and your abstract and your title, are those the way that it should be? Okay. When we're reviewing your dissertation, we are not reviewing it for content. We are not reviewing it for the rigor of the research. We are making sure that the document is a well-organized document that reflects the standards that we have at the university. I think something that's important to know that maybe not a lot of people realize this until they usually get to the end, but as part of your submission to the district, as part of the submission process, you have to upload your dissertation to Proquest. Proquest is the service that we use to get your dissertation up into all the databases, so that if someone goes out to JSTOR or some of these other online databases to retrieve research, that yours shows up in there. You know, like if you go out to Google and you type it in, you want to make sure that yours goes in there. Proquest does that. Okay. So when you submit your document to Proquest, you are submitting it officially for publication. Okay, that's what makes it a published document, the dissertation. So we are making sure that what gets published under Oakland University's name is consistent with what we would expect for a document under Oakland University's name. And again, not the research, but how it's organized. We want to make sure that it's a very well-organized document that can be followed. So when we're doing this and we're doing these reviews, before COVID, we used to do these meetings in the office, but the good news is with COVID, we've learned that we can actually do this online. So these meetings take place via Zoom. Most of your meetings will take place with our theses and dissertation assistant, who I think dropped in. Katrina, I think you're here, or I think I saw you hop in.
I'm here.
Hey, there she is.
Hey.
So your first couple meetings will be with Katrina, and she is going to review your document, and she's going to make sure that, like I said, the margins, the table and figure placement, the preliminary pages are to our standards. In general, and this is something that some of you will hear for the first time, but this is a new thing, or something that we're really trying to stress lately. And that is your very first meeting that you'll have, the pre-defense meeting. We would really like to see you and your document 1 to 2 months prior to your defense, if not sooner. Okay. So if you're getting up to your defense and you're 1 or 2 months away, you should have a decent part of your document that is already done, right? It is much better for us to meet with you 1 or 2 months before you defend and see your document where it is at that time than it is to meet with you the day before your defense and seeing it for the first time the day before your defense. It gives us time to show you what needs to be changed, give you pointers and tips so that when you're fine tuning your document, you're finishing your document, you can be working on getting it into format. I think I'm going to speak for Katrina and myself when I say there's nothing more stressful for a student than meeting with us to have your document reviewed a day or two before you defend and hearing the words, "This is nowhere near our standards. This is nowhere near our guidelines that we have." And now we have students who are panicked, right? Their document isn't the way that it's supposed to be. They're getting to their defense. Most students will defend right up on the deadline. So now they have the stress of not just the defense, but only having 2 weeks after the defense to get the document into the standard. And so if there's anything that I can impress upon you today, other than know your dates and plan out your graduation semester accordingly, it's meet with us as soon as possible and have a chance for us to review your document as soon as possible. Don't drag your feet on that. If you've got 3 chapters written, Katrina, I don't know, I'll let you hop in if you want anything to say, but if you have 3 chapters written, that gives us a start. That gives us a really, really good start to see where you're at and for us to give you pointers and whatnot. Katrina, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I would like to impress upon the fact that when you do your preliminary pages, which is a template found on our website, try not to fill in your page numbers at this time, because those are things that will change, along after your defense, things you may be, want to complete, but those things, just follow the template as closely as possible. Do not make any changes to the template, because I've noticed that a lot of students go in and just reformat our templates. They're all set for you to just click on those areas, those designated areas, and to type your information in. So make it easy for yourself. Don't change anything. Just update those areas where you can click, it's highlighted, and you just type your information in. Don't use the space bar to get over to the next area. And, some people, you may want to look at a Word tutorial to see, to get some information on how to use Word. So that's about all I have to say.
Steve and Katrina, Abdullah has a question about the pre-defense meeting and wants to know if the time period of 1 to 2 months is a must, because Abdullah is planning to schedule this meeting 2 weeks before defending.
So 1 to 2 months is not a requirement. It is a very, very strong recommendation. How about that? Meeting us for the first time 2 weeks before your defense, quite honestly, is just going to put more stress on you. I mean, and there's no nice way to say it other than that, is, waiting to that point to meet with us for the first time is just going to create more stress for you. And so if you're able to meet with us sooner, I would strongly recommend meeting with us sooner. And then to follow up on what Katrina said, she mentioned our templates, just so that everybody knows, because they're like, what templates? Don't worry, that's covered a little bit later in the presentation. We're going to get there.
So I'll leave Hanan's question then about a LaTeX template for then.
Yes, so we do have a LaTeX template here in the grad school. And if you need that, what you can do, and I will drop it in the chat here, is go to grad formatting, send an email to gradformatting@oakland.edu. I just put it in the chat, and just ask for the LaTeX template, and someone will help assist getting that to you. And I will note, I will make a note here, because I do understand that we have a lot of engineering students, which is great. So no one in the grad school knows LaTeX. I quite honestly, we know Word. That's what we have. And I know students want to use LaTeX because of the preference for the way that it handles the equations, especially for our documents in the STEM area. Just a forewarning, we are not able to provide a lot of great mentorship and service around LaTeX. So if you plan on using LaTeX, my recommendation for you is, before you embark on that endeavor, find someone who already has, who can help guide you through that. Because unfortunately, that's not something that we're going to be able to do when we're looking at your document. And if it's a LaTeX document, we're just going to be looking at the PDF file. Whereas if it's a Word file, many times if we find something and we're working with you, we can help you fix it, or show you what to do to fix it. When it's LaTeX, our hands are really tied. So the next slide. So you have your pre-defense meeting, and then you have your post-defense meeting. So when you come in and meet us with your document at the pre-defense meeting, we're anticipating that there's going to be things that need to be fixed, right? We are anticipating that there are going to be several issues. When you come to your post-defense meeting, the expectation is a lot different. Our expectation is at your post-defense meeting, most of the issues that we talked about in the pre-defense meeting are resolved. And most students, when they come to their post-defense meeting, the document should be near perfect. They should have taken the changes that we gave them, or the instruction that we gave them during the pre-defense meeting, and had that already incorporated. And I think it's really important too to highlight at this point, especially even between the pre and the post defense meeting. and this is something I really want to stress, this is your document. This is your dissertation. This is your thesis. Whatever it is, this is your document. It's your responsibility to get it into format. We will guide you. We will mentor you. We will help you the best that we can. We will give you advice. But it is not the grad school or the writing center's responsibility to put it into format for you. We sometimes have students that show up to the meetings and they think that we're just going to sit down and fix it. That's not the way it works. If we see a problem, yeah, we'll help you fix it. If it's a problem that's consistently throughout the document, we're going to show you how to fix it once and expect you to make that correction through the rest of the document. Okay. So at that pre-defense meeting, pay really close attention to what Katrina is trying to tell you, because she's trying to help you. And the good news is at the pre-defense meeting, because they are on Zoom, we do record it and we make it available to you afterwards if you need it, so that if you hear something the first time, you have the ability to hear it a second, a third, and a fourth time. Now, if you get stuck, it's okay. You can email us. We do what we can. It's not like we meet you once and then we cut our ties, but it's really important that you understand that, we're trying to show you how to make the changes and to get it into format. It's not our goal and it's not our responsibility to do that for you. And I know that sounds really strong and that sounds really harsh. But unfortunately, for some students, it's, that's what they thought would happen. And I just don't want any of you to be caught in that. So at the post-defense meeting, hopefully the document is in really good shape and we take a good look at it. And if everything's good and it's the way that it should, then what Katrina will do is she will email it to me and basically say, this document is ready for final review. I will take, as the final approver in the grad school, I'll take a final look at it. And if it's good, I'll send you an email. And the email says, congratulations, your document's approved. And then I'll send you instructions for printing and completing, the Proquest submission and the survey of earned doctorates and those kinds of things. So like I said, the pre-defense meeting, we're expecting there to be a lot of, challenges, things that might need to be fixed. At the post-defense meeting, we're expecting things to be really, really close to near completion. That said, some people ask, well, why have a pre and a post-defense meeting? And quite honestly, the answer is some of you, when you defend, this is a very common thing that will happen for some, but not all. When you defend, at your defense, your committee may actually recommend there be changes. They actually may say to you, oh, we really like chapter 4, but we think we need another paragraph or two here. Or chapter 5 looks great, but we really think you need to, clarify this particular section. And so what's important is if that comes up, right, that you do not meet with us until at your post-defense meeting until after all of those changes have been made, right? Because what you don't want to do is get the thing perfect and then have the committee or whatever tell you that you need to change this or you need to change that, only for you to upend everything and move stuff around. And now you're, like Katrina was saying, you're fixing page numbers and that kind of thing. So to that point, when you defend, after you're done, your committee chair will send us what's called a thesis or dissertation approval memo. We send that memo to your committee chair a week prior to your defense. And that memo is very important because that memo they send to the grad school says this dissertation is done. The faculty is done reviewing it, the content is good, and it gives us the signal that we can complete the process with you. We will not be able to complete the process with you until we have that memo. Okay. I'm gonna stop for a second and see if there's any questions so far about the post-defense meeting or the dissertation approval.
Yeah, excuse me. I have a question here, please.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. If I'm trying to like a defense like around January, okay, in the beginning of January, that's mean I don't have time like maybe like just days before I can go and make my defense. So if in that time I can like go with like a pre like a pre review for my dissertation, and then if I have like some mistakes I can like because I have time. Is that right or not?
So are you
Yeah,
asking me? Go ahead,
yeah.
say.
Yeah, sorry for that. Yeah, I mean, like now you told us we should like go 1 to 2 months before we go to defense. For me, actually, I would like defense around maybe January 15th. You know, that's mean I don't have like enough time to meet with you guys. So, do you think there is any problem or any something that you can advise us before go with that?
So okay, I think I understand. So you're thinking about defending mid-January, right?
All right.
I got that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. And you're wondering if there's time or if there or you know if we can meet with you now because we're at the beginning of December, so we're right up on that 1 month. So the answer to the question is if you're planning on defending mid-January, so you're gonna try and graduate in winter. If you would like to meet us now and have us review what you have now, yes, we can. And a matter of fact, what I would say to you is, this is actually a really good time to meet with us because we just completed fall. And so our calendar is pretty wide open at the moment. So it's really easy to get an appointment with us at this time. Whereas for those students that are possibly waiting until March or April to make an appointment with us, well, because it gets really close to the deadline, it gets a lot harder to get an appointment with us. And so I guess what I would say to you, Faris, I think that was Faris that was asking.
Yeah.
If you're asking, can we meet with you now? Yeah, the answer is yes, we can.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's clear. Thank you.
So it looks like there's a question that just came in from Saif. And the question is the appointment online or in person? Like I said, it's all done on Zoom. And someone's asking, how do we make an appointment? And it's funny because that was the next slide. So if we can just go to the next slide for a second. So on our website, right there, oakland.edu, grad, current student. And is there any way that I can take the screen share? I think there is, right? Yay.
Now, yeah.
Cool. All right. And so if you go on our website, I got to move some stuff around. Oakland.edu/grad. There we go. You guys can see the website, right? Yeah, cool. Thanks, Victoria. So if you go to our website, the answer to the question, how do we make an appointment, or where are some of these things that you're talking about? If you go to current graduate students right here, and you click on doctoral or master students, whatever that might be for you, but we'll just click on doctoral students. you will see a theses and dissertation button. You can click that. And right there, we have the defense announcements I was telling you about. This is where all of our defense announcements are posted. And again, that has to be done 7 days. But it walks you through this approval process that we just talked about. But it also has a link to our online calendar. So when you click on this link, you will see that there are available appointment slots that we have out there, where you will just go and you'll click and you hit save, and it will add. You have to be logged into your Oakland email account for this to work, but it will basically create an appointment with us. And so you have to choose from these available slots that we have here. Those slots are up usually for several weeks, if not months in advance. I know we're into December, and I think we'll be working on January here soon. So we'll get those up. But that's how you do it, is you go online and you just pick your appointment slot. Now, a couple things with these appointment slots, and this is really important, and it's outlined here on our website. But same day appointments will not be scheduled. Especially as we get close to the deadline. Katrina is helping a lot of students, right? We typically have anywhere between 30 and 35 students that we're trying to help at any given semester. And so same day appointments are very difficult for us to do. So don't plan on a same day appointment. To that point, if you need an appointment and it's going to be the next day, you need to schedule it by 4:55 the day before. So if you want to meet us on Tuesday, you need to schedule that appointment by 4:55 the day before, because we'll take those available appointment slots down at the end of the day for the next day. And like I said, you have a pre and a post defense meeting. Sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes we will have to meet with students multiple times, especially if the document is particularly challenging, if there are lots of tables and figures and things like that. It's very important that you know that additional meetings are at the discretion of the reviewer, and you need to coordinate additional meetings with the reviewer, that being Katrina. If you've had multiple meetings, don't just go on the calendar and just set up a meeting. You really should reach out to Katrina using this grad formatting email or wherever it might be, and coordinate that additional meeting. Okay. And so, but that's all outlined here. Also on this website, we have documents and templates, including our guide for preparing theses and dissertations. This is our comprehensive guide that outlines everything that you should be familiar with. I would say most particularly, you want to familiarize yourself with section 10, the general formatting, and especially section 11, the tables and figures. These are the biggies that we're really looking at. Also on this website, we have our preliminary pages, and this is what Katrina was talking about. And what's nice about these preliminary pages is if you click on them, and hold on, if I go to here, did it download? Yeah, it did. So I need to stop share screen. We'll click here. So this template is the preliminary pages. And what's nice about it is all you have to do is just click on it and be like, Stephen Meyer, and your title and your academic name and your degree year. This makes it really easy to get you started. So, and then it gets you all the way to chapter 1, and then you could take your document and be like, boom, paste. And what's great about this is the margins are already set up, right? All the page numbering and everything is already set up. So if you haven't started writing yet, I strongly encourage you to go and get the template off of our website and start with the template. That will save yourself a whole lot of aggravation and grief. And so that's our website. I don't know if you can go back and show the PowerPoint presentation, but that gives you a little bit of a primer on the process, our website, how to make an appointment. Are there any questions so far?
I just want to add that once they use those templates, make sure not to delete those extra line spaces that Steve was showing you. You don't have to delete it. You don't, those are there for for the purpose of printing and making sure that everything fits on the page the way it should. So don't delete anything. Just type in those gray shaded areas and move on to the next area. Thank you.
There were a couple of questions in the chat. First, do we need to send the file 48 hours ahead of the appointment? Should we send any file ahead of the appointment? And then Mustafa, can we use this template in our proposal? The proposal, that might be a better question for the department, but I'll defer to Steve and Katrina on that one.
Yes, we definitely want your document 48 hours before the appointment, because Katrina likes to take a look at it beforehand, so that when she meets with you, the meeting is very efficient, and she's not spending a lot of time trying to figure out what's wrong. She has time to look at it and prepare for the meeting. Who likes to go to a meeting unprepared, right? Like, so I'll say this about Katrina. She's very passionate and good about what she does, and she wants to help our students. And so like you, she doesn't want to show up to a meeting and be unprepared to help you. And so it's really a courtesy to her, for her to have the document beforehand so that she can provide you the best service. And I know that she takes that very seriously. And so please make sure that you get that document to her in advance. The other question is, can we use the template in our proposal? I suppose so. I mean, the proposal's more between you and we don't care. I don't want to say it that way. We're not as concerned about your proposal as we are with your dissertation. Katrina, did I miss anything?
Nope, you're on cue. Thank you.
See, she lets me know. Katrina lets me know when I'm off track. She keeps me in line. I've heard that every program will be using the same format moving forward. Will these templates change for defending it? Okay, so yeah, there is conversation right now in the graduate school about simplifying the guidelines. That is true. However, that's not going to happen in the next couple weeks. So if you're planning on finishing in January, plan on using our guidelines in format that's in there in that manual. I will say this much, especially starting with fall. How do I say this? And this was always the case. When I'm looking at a document, I'm looking at the spirit of the law versus the letter of the law, okay? What I'm looking for is a really well-organized document. And if it's not perfect to the guidelines, it's okay. What I'm looking for is this document well-organized and, is it consistent? You want to be consistent. I can't stress that enough. Consistency is so important. So, when it comes to headers and how you're starting sections or how you're placing figures, consistency. We had a student, my battery's gonna die. Please don't die. I got 10%. I got my charger here somewhere, but we had a student last semester, right, who did something consistently wrong through the whole document, right? I let it go because it was consistently wrong. It was consistent, and it was and it was a very small thing, you know, but was it out of format technically? Yes. Was the document still well organized? Yes. Could the reader still follow it? Yes. And was it consistent? Yes. So I'm like, it's fine. I'm gonna let it go. So you want to be consistent. Now you don't want to be consistently wrong on everything, right? But you want to be as consistent as you can. What's the next slide? I think the next slide is you, Sheri. Are there any questions? All right, I'm gonna let Sheri take over for a little bit.
All right, so we're going to move into some resources to support you, and we're going to start with resources that are available from the library. And I'm just going to briefly overview those, and I have included links to them, and I have shared live links in the version that I've shared with you as an attendee document, but I'm just going to describe each of these. I'm not a librarian. I'm not going to provide any of these resources for you, but I want to give you a short overview of these and why you should seek them out. Again, this presentation is aimed at people who are just moving into candidacy, as well as people who may be defending next semester. If you're defending next semester, these resources are not going to be relevant to you. You hopefully have already found them and used them. But the first one, a research consultation. All colleges have a given, and all major divisions within them have a given librarian assigned to them who is their point person. But beyond that, the library has research consultations that you can schedule. These people sit down with you via Zoom. They go over the search terms. You talk to them about your research area. They know the terms you need to use, the different databases that are appropriate for you to be looking at. I know that you guys are researchers, but we're not experts in information literacy. They are. So their goal is to help us find not just what is available via OU's databases, but to help us find the terms and the research that's available on our topics. Because we're not just responsible for what's available here. We're responsible to show that we're familiar with what's available on our topic, and we're supposed to become the experts in that area. So they help us with that. A second part related to that is research data support. So they can help you find ways to store your data. They have an interlibrary loan. They have an interlibrary loan support that I can swear by. Often I will put in a request for something. As I said, they will identify something that is not available here at Oakland, but it is a seminal work in the field on a project that is crucial to my work right now. And I get it often the next morning. So don't ignore those sources that aren't available here. You often can get them the next morning by putting in an interlibrary loan request, which I have linked to. And the last resource that they have that I wanted to draw your attention to is Refworks. It is a way of storing and archiving all of the resources that you collect as you go and search different databases, so that you're creating an initial references list and storing the articles that you're going to be reading and using in your dissertation or thesis. But your first stop after you have moved from, taking your qualifying exams and moving into your candidacy and starting your work is probably to meet up with the librarian. And this shouldn't be a one-time deal. This should be something that you do probably on a regular basis, especially if there has been any interruption in your study, because the research goes on even if we take a timeout. So I wanted to draw your attention to those resources. And certainly there are some great librarians that you can reach out to via those links, starting with the very first one, who can tell you more about each of those resources. So we can move to the second one. And you don't have to listen to me beyond the fact that I just want to say that when I first realized that there was a gap in services, student services for graduate students, I envisioned robust support for people like you. And I am so gratified to see 31 people here tonight. And I'm asking Red and Tori to tell you a little bit about 3 of the services that we have grown to support you. So I'm going to turn it over to them right now.
Thank you, Sheri. I'll begin and then I'll let Red jump in. Red is the seasoned professional here, who is someone that has worked throughout his time here and knows way more about the programs and the consultations. But I am someone that works only with graduate students, so you kind of have the best of both worlds here. First, before we get into the resources, I want to echo what Steve said. We work with your research, with your document. It's your writing and your responsibility. We are so appreciative that you want to come to us and show us your work and understand it's very vulnerable asking for our assistance. But in the same respect, there's a limit to the assistance that we can provide. So when we're talking about those one-on-one consultations, those are those appointments for your writing assistance. And as Red alluded to earlier, we like to begin those well before you begin writing, if that's what you need. We like to work with you in the proposal stage or whatever stage you need for your dissertation. We can assist with IRB, Qualtrics, excuse my dog in the background, whatever it is to help you get along that process. We do not like to see your proposal or your dissertation or your thesis when it is complete. If you show up and you give us a 100-page document, I can guarantee we're not going to get it done in 1 or 2 sessions. It's very difficult for us to delve into your writing, which is different from our own, and work with you in this consultation. So come meet with us, start with us very early on. If you're defending next semester, make an appointment with us this semester, get to know us, let's see some of your writing and get right into your dissertation so that we can help you graduate as fast as you can with the best piece of work you can. And then I want to hand it over to Red to talk about our workshops.
Yes, thank you. So, I would say it's very much in the wheelhouse of normal to have people come in the semester before they plan to even start their research, start meeting with us, working with us. I've worked with a number of people, like Tori said, through the whole proposal stage phase and then onward into beginning the actual research and writing up thereof. So that's something that is one of my favorite parts of this position, is getting to know people and working with them regularly. So people often will say things like, oh, I just feel like, I'm bothering you all the time. No, this is what we're here for. Like, please make appointments. In terms of our one-on-one consultations, you can have up to 3 per week. You can have 1 per day, and they last for 1 hour. And that is based on research that shows that it's pretty much you're going to max out on your productivity looking at writing after about an hour. We do limit it to 3 per week just because of the demand right now. We have a very busy schedule, so the earlier you can make an appointment, the better. Sheri, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but we have our schedule currently set up where you can sign up for these one-on-one consultations up to 2 weeks in advance. I will say that at the present time, until we have some support staff coming on next semester, Victoriano and Kaylee. At the present time, we are booked about 2 weeks out. So do keep an eye open on openings in our schedule, and we can talk about how to get you set up with an account to look at our scheduler as well. It's a little bit different than the grad schools, but similar concept. And then also we have the ability to meet up to 3 times a week. So a lot of people, they'll take advantage at the beginning phases of, 3 appointments a week if the schedule allows for that. And again, don't feel like you're relying on us too heavily. That's what we're here for. Where I do want you to feel like you're relying on us too heavily, though, is when you're coming to us and expecting us to write things for you. We are writing consultants, which means we're going to look at your work and consult and collaborate with you on how to improve it. But that does not mean we're going to rewrite it for you. It does not mean that we are copy editors. We do not get paid nearly enough to do that. And we don't want to do that anyway. We want to collaborate with you to help you produce the best document that you can. Tori, can you go back just for a second? I want to look at the workshops for a moment. One of the things that Sheri really championed was this Dissertation 101 series, and this very well fits into that realm as well. But essentially, it covers, from A to Z what you need to know as you're going through the dissertation process. And not that it's exclusive to dissertations. I did a very large thesis project for my master's degree too, and I know that other people out there are doing the same thing. So certainly room for similar crossover with people at the master's level who are doing their theses as well. And then sit down and write. Oh, and those, they're just periodic, and we're trying to iron out right now what's going to be in person and when that's going to be returning. But at the present time, we are offering virtual for all of our presentations, at least, to zoom into it if it is in person. We try to record those when appropriate and also make those available for as broad an audience as possible. So keep an eye open on the mailing list and through the graduate school literature coming into your inbox for some of additional information on the Dissertation 101 series. Sit down and write, though, is something that Tori and I are intimately involved with, and that is something that we do bi-weekly, if not weekly, depending again on our availability and the demand. But essentially, it is, as the name suggests, a forum where you can just come sit down and write, distraction-free. We have been doing it virtually right now, and it's been working out fine. We have been employing the Pomodoro Technique. For those of you who aren't familiar, it's kind of shorter spurts of work followed up by 5 to 10 minute breaks, shorter breaks. And again, data and research show that that's a way for you to increase your productivity over a short time span. So that has been working out really well. We do hope at some point again to get back in person, but typically those sessions take place on Saturday mornings from about 9 till 1 or 2 in the afternoon. And I will say that if it was not for those sessions, I probably would not have got my master's done the semester that I wanted to and get out the door with that degree. It was immensely helpful for me to spend Saturday mornings dedicated, having a line item right in my schedule to sit down and write. That's what that's for. Is there anything that you would like to add, Sheri or Tori, or follow up on anything that maybe was not clear?
I just want to add that our next sit down and write and our last one for this semester is actually next weekend. So Saturday, December 11th from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Feel free. We'll put our emails in the chat. Email us. We can get you on the list and get you the link if you're interested in joining us. A little preview for next year. Red and I just had a meeting today to discuss workshops, and it looks like we'll be holding around 5 workshops, anywhere from wellness using Mendeley, literature review writing, and file naming conventions are all on our list for next semester. So again, email us. We send out a newsletter with all of our links. So we'd love to have you guys join us next semester.
And I see that Mohammed had a question about why we can't book 2 sessions consecutively. When our sessions were 40 minutes, we sometimes allowed people at advanced candidacy to book 2 sessions in a row. When we moved to 1-hour sessions, we found that the fatigue turned into more of an editing session, and the research supports that we only work productively really for about an hour. So our goal is to get you to work for about an hour with us and then to extend what we've worked on across the rest of the writing, and then take a day, then come back and we can see what you did on your own and help you extend it. So our goal is not to help you finish anything within an hour, but for it to be a learning session and a productive session that helps you get something done and to learn patterns, and then for us to continue to work on your manuscript later. Because again, with these big documents like theses and dissertations, we're not going to finish a chapter, we're not going to finish a dissertation or even a publication in one setting.
One thing I would add too that I wanted to say, but I brushed over, was, sometimes people will say, well, you're not an engineer. So how would you know to read my work? Or you're not, you don't work in counseling. And that's a really good question. So if there are anybody who was maybe thinking about that, first of all, we're trained in writing tutoring, which is kind of its own pearl in the tutoring world. Writing tutoring, because like Tori said, it is inherently vulnerable to show people you're writing. We all fear that. We don't want to show drafts that aren't 100%. You know, that's something that is unanimous across the board for any human, I think. We don't come out of the womb like, you know, prolific authors. This is something that takes a lot of practice, right? But it's vulnerable. But what's key is that sometimes, because you have expertise blind spot in terminal degrees, higher order or higher level degrees, it's nice to have somebody from outside of the discipline look at your work, because we evaluate it differently. And I will say that having done this for 4 or 5 years now, I've read just about every discipline that I think from any degree that Oakland has to offer. And I'm not an expert in all of those at all. I picked a specific niche to become, you know, to pursue a doctoral degree, and that I do want to become an expert on. It's not everything across the board, obviously, but there is some other benefits that come out of letting somebody from outside of your discipline in to see your work, and the comments that generates, and the revisions that generates. So that's something that I do get asked a lot. I didn't see it in the chat tonight, but it might be something that you're wondering about. We can help you no matter what you're writing on, what the topic is, again, what phase you're in, so on and so forth.
And our training involves a lot of what we call genre awareness. So our goal is not to make you sound like we do. So for example, Victoria is a psychology major and Red is an education major. And I came from American Studies and the humanities first, and then did a Ph.D. in educational leadership. Our goal is to help you write like you and for your discipline. But the highest compliment I got was from a scholar in computer science last year, who we had worked together for several months. And he said to me, he said, "It's just amazing watching you work with me. You get my work." He said, "You're always looking for patterns." And he did not mean mistakes in his writing. He said that I followed his writing and I would look for patterns, and I didn't necessarily always understand what he was talking about, but I would notice patterns, and then I could ask questions about things that he had changed or represented differently. And he said it was very similar to the way that he programmed and looked for patterns and things too. And we realized that we shared something. And that was so exciting to me, that he realized our work was in many ways looking for patterns and, you know, asking questions that helped him dig deeper into his writing and think about his audience. And that is our goal as your coaches.
I love that, Sheri. And I think that goes back to our point about come see us now. Let's make a relationship. We can better help you be your best writer if we know what that looks like now. We can even help you write these paragraphs that you're struggling with. We'd much rather do that than try and edit something you've already done. Go ahead and feel free to put any questions in the chat. I'm just going to show you, if you go to the Writing Center and you go to our page to make an appointment, Red and I are actually found. If you go to Dissertation Consulting right here, you can see we're booked pretty far in advance. Our next availability is next Tuesday. You can make an appointment, put in some of that information that would best help us, and you can drop in as many files, up to 3 files here, that we can work with. So if you have a rubric, if you have comments from an advisor you want to address, put that in. We'd love to work with you. And again, like the graduate school, it helps us to look at it beforehand so we know what we're walking into and can have a more efficient meeting.
The last part of our session was to just address some of the frequently occurring, problems really, that frustrate completion. And some of them have already come out just from the discussion that we've had here. We're not going to belabor them because we don't want to over focus on problems, but I at least wanted to provide you with resources, or we as a group wanted to provide you with resources. So we're going to start, Steve had put together a page on kind of the more you know. A lot of it he's already covered, but I'm gonna just turn the floor over to him for a moment and he can address anything he'd like, and then we'll just go through a few things and then we can have an open discussion.
So yeah, like Sheri said, I've covered a lot of it already, and but I'll just say this again. Go out to our website under the thesis and dissertation section, and make sure that you're familiarizing yourself with the guide for the preparation of theses and dissertations. It's very, very important. I think the things that we see, one, I'll say it again, start with the preliminary page templates. That's going to save you a lot of grief. Again, those are out there on the website. But beyond that, I think the three things that we see the most that create the most challenge for us when trying to assist our students. One, making sure the document is appropriately organized, so that headings are used correctly, whether it's APA. Excuse me one second. Sorry, I was sucking on a candy and I wasn't quite ready for Sheri for you to give it back to me, so I had to resolve that problem there. So make sure the document is well organized. You're using the right headings. If you're psych or education, you're using APA. If you're history, you want to make sure that you're using was it Chicago MLA, I think it is. If you're in engineering or the STEM areas like biology or chemistry, you want to stick to the headings, the underlining and stuff. And again, that's all out there on our website. So make sure that the document is organized consistently. Thank you. So Mohammed, great question. APA 6 or APA 7? The answer is yes. So APA will change and update all the time. And a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure APA just did a major update back here in October. Maybe it would have been a little bit before. Maybe it was October. Was it 2 years ago?
Yeah, October 1st, 2019.
It was 20. Okay, got it. So it was 2019. All right. So we had some students who started writing their dissertation or went through their proposal or whatever it is using APA, whatever it was, 7, 6. I've lost count. And then 6. Thank you. And then it changed. And so we will accept either 6 or 7, right? It's really, this is a discussion between you and your chair. That's the important thing to know. This is a discussion between you and your chair. That's not something that we enforce at the grad school. It's between you and your chair. So what I would say to you is have that discussion and pick one and stick to it. Also, where do I begin? Copyrighted materials. All right, let's just have this very frank conversation. Do not go out to Google, image search something, and drop it in your dissertation. Don't do it. It's very likely that you are doing one of two things. Either you're plagiarizing or you're violating copyright, or you're both plagiarizing and violating copyright. I had a student it was like 2 semesters ago, going back a year or 2 ago. I was reviewing the dissertation and the illustrations were incredibly professional. And it was a thesis and I'm looking at it. I'm like, hey, how'd you do these? These are really good. Like maybe he's a graphic artist or something. I don't know. I'm like trying to punch a hole in it or whatever. And he's like, I just went out to Google and I just copied and, saved the image and I dropped it in my document. Okay. So you don't know where they came from. You don't know what paper that they belong to. You don't know what research that they belong to. So you can't appropriately cite it. You don't know where it's been published. So you can't appropriately ask for permission to use it. So I think Sheri's going to cover this in a little bit.
No, we'll just put it right here so that we might as well just put it right here. Yeah. I'm not gonna go into depth again because I'm not a librarian, but Steve just brought up such an important topic, and Julia Rodriguez, one of our scholarly communications librarian, is excellent. She's given presentations on copyright and fair use for graduate students several times for us, and I have her materials, and I have linked to her workshop here. It is so important that you understand that you must get permission to use that table on the web, that graph, an instrument. For example, if you used an instrument for a study, you can't reproduce it. You can't reproduce those questions within your dissertation without getting permission. And Julia Rodriguez is the person to talk to help guide you through that process. And she loves to work with graduate students on those issues. And again, this link works in the attendee document. This will help you. So sorry for interrupting you, Stephen.
No,
I thought,
no.
why come back to it? You brought it up, so we'll switch back to your slide now. Might as well go there.
So, yep. So, I just want to say this because it goes right into the next and the final bullet. That it goes hand in hand. Copyrighted material usage and the placement and formatting of illustrative materials. Let's just talk about illustrative materials for just a second here. One, remember, this is a dissertation or a thesis. It's supposed to be an original work. It's supposed to be original research, right? And I get it. There might need to be, especially possibly in the lit review, where you might want to include a table or a figure from a previous work or whatever it is to support what you're doing. That's great. However, if you are finding as many outside illustrative things to put into that thing as you possibly can, you're doing it wrong. Okay. You don't need to have 50 figures from outside sources. And to that point, you don't need to have 50 figures unless you really need to of your original stuff. And this is one of the biggest challenges that we see and we come across. And that is the use of illustrative materials that quite honestly have little use or value to the research that's being presented. At some point in time, there is such thing as having too many tables and figures. It breaks up the text, it breaks up the research, and quite honestly, it becomes incredibly distracting. And sometimes I get it. There's like sometimes this feeling like if I don't have tables and if I don't have figures, it's somehow this illegitimate document. It's not true. I had a student last semester, I swear to you, the dissertation was 60 pages. That's it, 60 pages. It had one table and one figure. That's all that person needed to communicate their research. And so I'll give you a really good example of what not to do. Back about 2-3 years ago, I was advising a student who was having the dissertation completion, and it was in chapter 3, maybe it was chapter 4, it was chapter 3, the methods. And they were doing some work and they were demonstrating how to log in, and part of the work was logging into a website that they were using to perform their research. It was a very important website, and I'm going to be very non-descriptive as possible on purpose because I don't want to out this student and shame them publicly. But either way, so in chapter 3, there were 4 pages of figures on how to log into this website. And it was literally a screenshot of the website. And it showed like the login. It said username and password. It said figure 1, login. Figure 2, enter in your login name and password. And it would show and it was like literally 10 figures of procedurally how to log into something the equivalent of Amazon. It wasn't needed. You know what I'm saying? Or at the very least, it could be in the appendix. If you really feel like you have to put it in there, you could put it in the appendix. But either way, you had 3, 4, 5 pages of these figures that were distracting from the research. And what I will say to you is, the more figures you have, the harder it is to get your paper into the proper format. and Katrina, when she meets with you, will go over the rules, or they're in our guidelines so that you can read them for yourselves. But long story short, if you have a figure, there needs to be 2 double spaces separating it from all the text. If the figure's at the top of the page, below the page, middle of the page, every time you have a figure, you need to pad the space around it so that it doesn't get lost in the text. If you have 100, 150 pictures, figures, tables, whatever it is, this 70-page document comes 200 pages real quick. And I will tell you, getting those figures in their proper placement becomes a headache upon headache upon headaches. So what I'm telling you is, use figures if you need to. Don't use figures because you somehow think that if you don't have it, it makes it a less professional of a document. I don't know, Sheri, if that says it the way that you would say it, but that's what I'll say. Is table and figure placement is consistently our greatest challenge, and it's often because of the overuse of them.
And often what we find, I'm not going to speak for Tori and Red, but what I found is that it is the writer's attempt not to describe information that really needs to be in the text. And so the author thinks that the figures and tables will do the work for them. So that's often a sign of somebody who's less confident with their ability to explain the information. And the second point I want to make is, even if you do need tables and figures, not 100 of them, and sometimes that might mean an uncomfortable discussion with your lab supervisor, with your dissertation chair and others. And some things might have gone into a publication that don't need to go into your dissertation. But many of the things that I see, and I work with many, many, many dissertators and have over the years, are very poor quality tables and figures that no one can read. And when I ask people to explain them to me or to justify their existence, I get basically, well, I have to show that we did this test, or so-and-so said it needed to be in there. That's not a good enough reason. If we can't read it, if we can't understand it, it shouldn't be in there. And never, ever, ever, for those of you in the social sciences, should it be an SPSS dump. Never, ever. So I did find one of my favorite YouTube videos. There are some very good ones. And although this video is on APA style creation of tables, it doesn't just address how to pull out the vertical lines. It addresses things like asking yourself, is this appropriate? Am I referring to this information? Am I including what needs to be in? Am I including things that don't need to be in? Because I see a lot of table and figures that have a lot of extraneous information, or that aren't organized in a way that tell the story as well as they should. Because remember, a data table should tell a story very clearly. And these are things we can help you with. We're not going to go through 100 data tables with you, but we can certainly talk to you about these things. But I think this video was very helpful. And even if you're not using APA style, it makes you think about some of the considerations about, why am I including this? And what are some of the considerations I should, or what are some of the things I need to consider as I make a figure or a table? Does anybody have any questions? Oh, I see somebody about a model here.
Yeah.
So initially, Mohammed asked when Steve was speaking, how do we pat in our ideas if something is found?
What?
Okay, so I can speak to this a little. One, so that when you submit your dissertation to Proquest, there's a couple things here. When you submit your dissertation to Proquest, one of the options is to whether or not you want Proquest to copyright the document for you. And so they will actually take care of the official copywriting with the Library of Congress and make sure at the very least that the document is protected for copyright. Another thing that you can do, especially if your dissertation has grant funding behind it in part of your process with Proquest, is you can put an embargo on it. Right now, I believe the longest embargo is 1 year. And that basically prevents it from being put out there on the interwebs, you know, so that, you know, that the research, so that you have time to properly patent the research with the patent office. So Proquest will help you copyright it. We can embargo it to keep it private, but the patent process itself, that's all on you. So I would suggest finding a patent lawyer, whatever it might be, to help you guide you through that process. That's, you know, that's simply something that you're going to have to navigate on your own. Possibly your advisor has experienced it before and has a patent and may be able to help you. But that's certainly not something that we have here in the graduate school, or I think I'm just going to go on a long shot here and say the Writing Center too, unless of course Victoria, Red, or Sheri have previous experience that I don't know about in patent law.
Yeah, a little outside my wheelhouse, but I will say that somebody asked about like models and things. And I know that Julia Rodriguez has helped a lot of people. You know, a copyright with Proquest isn't quite enough, but Julia has helped people with copyright. It's not 100% foolproof, but I would talk to her about if you're creating a model about copyright beyond Proquest and doing that with your model before your dissertation. And you can find her on the library's homepage and under the research consultation page. Any other things you wanted to share, Steve?
No, I'm out.
All right, and I think this one got covered really well by Tori when she started, but I just oh wait, no, that's the next one I was thinking about. Not this one. I wanted to make I went too far ahead, sorry. Give me a second. I was jumping ahead. I think it's really important that we think about writing as part of our research. And I think so often, particularly in certain fields, we tend to think of, I did my research, now I quote unquote write it up. But your writing is your thinking. And if you think about academe, all of your research gets expressed in writing. Right. It also gets placed into innovations if you're in certain fields, physical innovations in many cases too. But your thesis and your dissertation represent your research, which also is represented within sentences and paragraphs and sections. And it gets, you know, carved out into introductions, and you use transitions. And you need to learn these academic moves. And these moves, they take the same level of work that you invest in learning and creating algorithms and studying human behavior and watching animal behavior, which is what Tori does, and coding data. As such, those of you who commence thesis and dissertation study need to start working with a consultant early in your program, if only to get a second set of eyes and ears on your work, and to provide accountability when you find yourselves less motivated and facing a roadblock. And that's particularly true if you feel less invested in the writing part, if you feel, if you're a multilingual speaker and you find yourself moving through several languages and often thinking I could express it. Like I always think if I had to do my dissertation in German, oh my gosh, I would sound like a 2-year-old, you know, and I respect those of you who are studying in a country, maybe speaking not your second language, but maybe your third language, right? And so it's often that thing that we put off that is harder for us, or it's that part that the longer we put it off, the more stress becomes associated with us. So it's trying to get you to believe, as we've been talking about since the beginning, and as Tori talked about when she introduced the consultations, that if you start coming early and often, and if you start working on this writing, along with running these trials and planning and reading, that you're going to yield a document, an evolving document that's going to reflect your research and that you're going to be proud of, and you're going to have less opportunities for pitfalls at the end. And I wonder, did Brad or Tori, did you want to add anything to that? I think we probably pretty much covered that, but I just really wanted you to start thinking about that as they come hand in hand. They're not separate. And let's stop thinking about it as something that, you know, now I'll work on the writing. Let's work on the writing the whole way through. I don't want to spend a lot of time again talking about plagiarism, but I have linked to, and we will have another workshop next semester. I'm going to reach out to the research office and do another workshop for graduate researchers on unintentional plagiarism. But I have linked to a lot of resources for all of you. This isn't a multilingual speaker problem. It's not a certain kind of writer problem. It's an everyone problem. And it's an issue that becomes more of a problem for us, particularly if we haven't spent enough time really invested in reading and getting very comfortable with the literature. And so getting more comfortable talking about what we're reading and putting it into our own words. And one of our common ways of talking about it is that, you know, substitutions, what we call synonym swapping, or deletions, dropping out a few words that aren't necessary, reversals, taking the front part of the sentence and moving it to the beginning, or adding in a few words. That's just not enough. So to avoid plagiarism, we have to make different moves. And one of the best ones is to get really familiar with the material to the point that we're sleeping it, eating it, drinking it, thinking about it, talking about it with people in the lab all the time. One of the pitfalls I see is that a lot of times people, they haven't read the literature in a while, and they sit down to write either the literature review, if it's a standalone literature review, or to plug the literature in, and they haven't read it in a while. So they pull it up and they just start pulling sentences out and names, and they start plugging it in. And that's when they're most likely to make mistakes. Misattribution, pulling the wrong name out of something, citing a primary source that they didn't read from a secondary source that they did read, as if they did read the primary source, and citing it incorrectly, creating an unintentional hybrid of their own words and a source that they read. We don't have time to go into a full plagiarism workshop tonight, and we've already been together for an hour and 40 minutes. I don't think any of us has the bandwidth to start a workshop on plagiarism tonight. And notice, we're calling it unintentional plagiarism. In my field, what we're talking about we technically wouldn't even call plagiarism, because if it's unintentional, we're talking about mistakes that good people make because they're tired, because they misunderstand things. Maybe there are cultural differences. Their notes had slippages. But we are expected, we're held to a higher standard. You're not undergrads. See, we can make mistakes when we're undergrads because we're in the learning curve. But as graduate students, we're held to a much higher standard. So this document is going to get submitted, as Steve said, to Proquest. Others all over the world are going to have access to this material. I'm not a big fan of plagiarism checkers per se. What they really are is text comparison tools. But for those of you who are very concerned about it, OU does have a plagiarism comparison software. We don't currently have it set up so that students can simply put their own documents into something and check it. But I am going to be working at the beginning of next semester with our instructional technology group to see if there's something that I can set up so that you don't have to pay a service like turnitin.com, so that you can work with the university to have something so that you can compare your document to the existing database. So I'll be working on that. But one thing I can do is I can offer a workshop. I can also offer guidance for those of you who are concerned about these things. And again, just coming in and making regular consultations with us, we tend to notice big changes, big shifts in the writing from your writing to sources. And these are things that we can help you with. So take a look at that. Take a look at that presentation and come in, and we'll be happy to talk with you about it. But there's just too much to cover for me to go into all of that tonight. But there is a program here at OU called Copy Leaks, and I will be looking into whether there's a way that we can make it available to grad students to self-compare their documents. Let me see if there are questions here. Okay. And I think